The film begins and we see a woman who was traveling from China to Hong Kong. She was also holding a lunchbox in her hand. As soon as she reaches home, opens all the boxes and throws away the food except one last box. There was a small dish like momo in the box, which the woman cleaned and ate. The name of this dish is Dumpling, which is also the title of this film. We see this woman whose name is May. But some people call her Auntie May because she is very old. But the surprising thing is that she looks like 30s. That is, she looks so young. How such a thing is possible and what is the reason? She looks so young. We will go further. But the reason is very terrible. May not only makes dumplings for herself, but she was very famous in making them because she used to make them and sell them to everyone, which was fresh and tasty to eat, and this dumpling was the secret of her beauty and young looks. She uses a special ingredient in the dumpling, which makes it so special. The next day, a woman, Mrs. Lee, comes to meet May. She used to be a film star earlier, but now she has come a far way from her career because she has married a very rich businessman and she is living her life just as his wife, because there is neither love nor a relationship like a husband-wife. She married him just for money, so that she would have a good status, but now she seems this situation getting out of her hands. As Mrs. Lee's age is increasing, her husband's attention is moving away from her. He makes relationships with beautiful girls and spends most of his time with them. Mrs. Lee's is very upset about this. She thinks that I am losing everything. But if I lose my youth and beauty, then nothing will remain in my hands. So today she came to Auntie May, because she had also found out from somewhere that there is magic in the dumplings that May makes. Such powers are found in those dumplings, that whoever eats them starts looking young again. Such changes occur in the body that the age of a person begins to look younger. In a way, they could stop or reduce the age of a person and make a person so beautiful that anyone would be drawn to them. But she doesn't believe any of that. So she says to me, "Give me some proof of this." I say, "Well, how old do you think I will be?" In response, the Mrs. Lee says, "This is someone around 30s. On this, May says I'm over 30 years old. You aren't able to guess my age. So, this proof wasn't enough. I mix such a special thing in my dumplings which has such magic that nothing else can give such beauty and young like that. Sometimes I myself have become so young and beautiful just by eating dumplings on my own. Such a good result cannot give you any cream, lotion, even if you get treatment for it. Why don't you agree? Even surgery cannot give you such a tremendous result. Because the increase in age a person goes through, every change in his human body, a person goes through from every age and also has to grow old one day. So, to reduce aging and look younger, this process cannot be done from outside, but it can be done from inside, which I do through dumplings, for which Mrs. Lee also agrees and now may present her dish in front of her. At first, Mrs. Lee was hesitant about it, but when she thinks about its consequences, she finally eats it. She thinks that this is the last option for me. Who knows? It may be a miracle for me. And then like this, she comes to my house and start eating these dumplings. Now somewhere she also got a clue that the ingredients that put in it are the meat of a small animals. But she doesn't get into that too much. She didn't want to know anything else. All she meant was the result. And as May was claiming that this dumpling seemed to be the solution to her problem, she then noticed that nowadays her husband is going on more trips and Mrs. Lee knew very well who he would be with on the trips. But despite knowing everything, she was going through this trouble and was living a sad life. But she can't do anything more than that. If she questions her husband more about this, he will hand a check of a huge amount to her hand. But he can do only this much for his wife. He could not give her anything more than this for his wife. Nor love, nor his attention, nor his time. Because of which Mrs. Lee was becoming frustrated day by day. Mrs. Lee did not like a dish like dumplings before, but due to helpless, she had to eat it today. Not only this, but now she also keeps giving me tips to prepare good dumplings that make them like this. Add this thing in it because it will make dumplings more tasty, but May gets angry. Now a few days pass like this and May was noticing a change in Mrs. Lee. Her skin was starting to look young. But Mrs. Lee wanted faster results. That is why she asked May to please do something like this, so that Mrs. Lee get better results overnight, to which May says yes and promised it will happen. Now when Mrs. Lee leaves, a woman comes to May's house, who brought her young daughter with her, whose name is Kat, comes to her house. From there, we know that there was once upon a time there used to be a very good lady doctor. She used to handle at least 10 cases a day, although she had given up her job. But still the woman had brought her daughter Kate here because this child Kate is just 15 years old. But she was about to become a mother and there is no one to do wrong with her but her own father, and now that she has become pregnant, her mother is wandering around with her because she wants to either give birth to this child or eliminate it. Now May checks the Kate. She found out that Kat's baby is 6 months old. So it was very difficult for me to see this case. So she refuses that I cannot do anything for it. She suggests that you contact the black market. You will find out about a hospital there. From there your daughter's baby will either be born or aborted. Because in that hospital, such works are also done. And I am still in touch with that hospital. But May was not a doctor there. Instead, she used to steal the meat of small children from there. That is, the special ingredient she uses in her dumplings. And it is not the meat of an animal, but of a human child. That was her secret. On the other hand, Mrs. Lee knew that her husband's affair was with the staff of a hotel. She used to come to his room every night and then stay there. Mrs. Lee now could not tolerate this thing. That's why she calls May to her house. And she tries to explain to her that, look, there is no one for me except my house and my husband. I want to expand my family. I love children. But I don't know why. That's not possible either. Now seeing her frustration, May decides that no matter what happens, I will help her at all costs. Meanwhile, Kate's health condition worsened. It appeared to look like she was about to give birth. Her mother was very worried about Kate. So May decides to help her too. The very next day, she calls Kate and her mother to her house, so Kate can give birth to her child. And real challenge for Kate is without any intoxicating medicine. Kate suffered a lot of trouble, and her child come out. Seeing this, a strange smile came on May's face because looking at this child and thought that this was what she needed, through which she could bring back Mrs. L's youth. Because the child was very healthy. First of all, the thing she used to mix in her dumplings was the meat of a small child that she used to steal from that hospital. But all those children were short-lived. And this child was 5 months old. So it has a lot of nutrition and a lot of strength in it, due to which Mrs. Lee will become young overnight as she dreams. This will work like a magic. She thinks that if I had given Kate medicine to sleep or give her drugs, all the goodness in it would be gone. That's why May now stores this baby's meat in her fridge. Then the next day, when Mrs. Lee came to her house, May took out this child's meat for mixing the dumplings. For a long time now, Mrs. Lee had been feeling that her dumplings had been mixed something special. And today she found out while May was preparing to grind the meat in the kitchen. Seeing this, Mrs. Lee becomes so scared that she immediately ran away from here. Now, after seeing this, and even thinking this, she begins to vomit about it, that she has been eating this for so long. But then she started thinking about her husband and herself, that my beauty and looks are most important for me. As I've gotten older, all of these things are going. If I continue like this, then one day my husband will definitely go away from me. So in this situation, if this is the solution to the problem for me, then this is the right one. That is why she thought that if the dumplings with baby meat keep me young and beautiful, I will not stop eating it. She controls herself and once again goes to May's house, where May make dumplings with the baby meat and give it to her to eat. Now thinking of such good results. Not only Mrs. Lee eats those dumplings but also enjoyed every bite. May was watching her every single bite and promise that these dumplings will definitely make you what you want and give you a new happy life. Very soon you will seeing the difference in yourself. Now Mrs. Lee was feeling great after hearing her words and eating these new types of dumplings. And then after a few days, real changes started taking place in Mrs. Lee. May's words were becoming true, because now Mrs. Lee was looking so attractive and young that her husband kept looking at her, doesn't take his eyes off her, and also compliments her that you're looking very cute. This made Mrs. Lee very happy, and the two spend a good time together after so much time. Now Mrs. Lee thinks that her life has become happy once again, because her husband now devotes all his attention to her. Leaving his work and giving his time was a big thing for her, but it's also true that every miracle has a side effect. There are also side effects with it, i.e., bad effects and wrong results. Mrs. Lee holds a party at her house, where all the friends and relatives had gathered. They also admires Mrs. Lee's beauty. But when she comes and sits in the middle of everyone, she smells fish, which was coming from Mrs. Lee's body itself. Because of this, Mrs. Lee has to face a lot of embarrassment. She leaves the party, locks herself in the bathroom, and takes a good bath. She thinks, how can May do this to me? She should have told me about these side effects earlier. So she makes a call and tells everything to May. In response, May say that I myself did not know about these side effects. Nothing like that never happened to me. Maybe this is the first time something like this has happened to you. It will be fine by the day after tomorrow. So don't worry a lot. Then Mrs. Lee is also get relaxed by her words now. Then she was unaware that her husband standing outside had heard all the talk of the two. Even before that there was suspicion that his wife was taking some special thing or some herb or some medicine or some intoxicating thing. So now, after listening to my words, he himself gets her information. And the next day he also meet Mai. Then Mai also feed him dumplings. Now Lee knew that May was a cannibal, because of the man-eater and the cannibal. She is so young and beautiful, and she is also doing all this with others too, by feeding them dumplings, although she is 65 years old. But she seems to be just 30 years old. But Lee, who was such a person before, it didn't matter to him that May was a man-eater. It only mattered to him that she was young and beautiful. At first sight Lee started to like May, so he started a relationship with May. Now May wanted this first because she knew how to use him and loot him. And now, after trapping him, she forms a relationship with him because she didn't want to miss this opportunity, after which both of them spend time together and both of them start ignoring Mrs. Lee completely. What else did Mai need? Such a rich man had fallen in love with her, and Lee also meant beauty. But so Mrs. Lee could not give up chasing on Mai easily, because now her body has got used to those dumplings. That's why she wanted to live with May. Now, if she gives up on eating dumpling, then her youth and beauty will all be gone, because she was already facing this difficulty. Marks were forming on her body. Red spots were appearing. And she couldn't sleep. She goes out and demands dumplings. But May was not ready to listen to her. On the other hand, the child of Kate, that May had given birth to, was in so much pain that she died because May did not perform the operation properly. Kate endured so much pain that she lost the courage, and Kate died. Her mother had gone crazy about her daughter's death, and she kills her husband, who is responsible for her daughter's death, along with the one who did wrong. The neighbors came to know about it and informed the police about this. When the police came and arrested Kate's mom, and when she was questioned, she also told Mai's name. But by the time the police came to catch her, May had already packed her things and fled from there. Now May was saved, but Mrs. Lee completely trapped. She understood that without those dumplings, she couldn't live without them. If I remained alive, all my youth and beauty would be gone. Now May was no more. She would have to make arrangements for those dumplings herself, for which she would find a way. She finds the same hotel staff with whom Lee had an affair and finds out that the girl is about to become a mother. And she is also 5 months pregnant. Because Lee wanted to have this child, he made a deal with the girl that if she gives birth to a child, he will give her a huge amount of money. So now Mrs. Lee asks for her child from the hotel staff, saying that she wants the child of hotel staff. She says, "I will give you twice as much money as my husband Lee has promised to give you." She wanted 2 victims with 1 arrow. If I get this child, then when this girl does not give a child to Lee, he will leave it and this thorn in my path will also end. And anyway, she was very hopeful that this girl would be killed during that time, and if I get that child, then with her help I can maintain my youthful beauty. For which the girl agreed, and Mrs. Lee took it. Mrs. Lee goes to the doctor and gives birth to this child, just like I had done without any intoxicating medicine, because he also wanted this child to be absolutely healthy and according to his thinking. The girl is killed during this processor, and now as soon as she takes the baby, she brings it home, then puts it and picks up the show part to grind, after which he will eat it. Which meant that in the end, like Mrs. Lee, she became a killer in her quest to be beautiful. Now he does not need anyone, nor any other processor, because he will get a child in exchange for money, always eating what he always wanted, always being a beautiful young man, and to get the love of his husband, which was now possible. And from now on his husband will not look at anyone, but he will only be attached to his wife, and the path behind it is very telling. And with this, the story also ends here.